Welcome back to the podcast. It's me, your host, Pete Tigers. I'm standing knee-deep in the river. I've had a beautiful trout to start the day. I'm on the Tor, my home river. I've been up in Hertfordshire and, the mayfly, it's early in the morning still, or early-ish actually. It's 11 o'clock. We had breakfast and came to the river and I managed to catch a nice fish in a spot that I've really wanted to catch a trout from for quite some time, and thankfully got lucky eventually. I had to think a little bit about what the fish was on and change flies a number of times, but I got a message pretty much out of the blue from a friend I first met 12 years ago. And it was when I was a guide at the time, and he'd been doing a lot of fishing. You'll hear his timeline as the day progresses. But he'd been doing a lot of fishing overseas and wanted to learn a little bit about fishing down in the West Country. So he booked me for a day, and then we had some wonderful days together as friends as well, which was wonderful fun that I thoroughly enjoyed. And when he messaged me and said he was in town, I had to meet up with him. So I managed to clear the schedule and we're standing, like I say, in the river at the moment. So I'm really pleased to be joined by Duncan Wilcox. Duncan, how are you doing, my friend?
Excellent. Beautiful weather, beautiful company, and beautiful fish.
And for you, people might detect the accent a little bit, but can you tell us a little bit about where you're from now and what that means from a fishing perspective?
Originally from the States, and grew up fishing, fly fishing from about the age of 8 or 9, and then fished all over the States, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and then made the big decision and moved to New Zealand about 25 years ago. And I moved there for really 2 reasons. One was it's a beautiful country. Second one was they have big trout. Yeah. So I've been there for quite a while and fished all over New Zealand, and off and on when I've moved away from New Zealand, I lived here in the UK for almost 3 years, and then Spain for almost 3 years. I'd go back every year for 3 months and hang out in New Zealand and thrash some water.
And what's it like being back? Like you say, you've been down in New Zealand a little while now. What's it like being back fishing these streams comparable to what you used to back in New Zealand?
Well, one of the things that struck me when I was living here was the fact that in New Zealand, you fish a pool, and you get out and you walk for 5-10 minutes on the bank, and you dry off and everything. Here, once it's sort of almost like you're in the water, you're in the water. And a lot of the beach, you start at an entrance point, and you have to fish sort of up the river. And that has to do also with the fact that you've got a lot of coverage over the river, and it's easier to fish from the center than it is from the sides. But yeah, it's definitely a different technique and a different. I mean, it's odd that trout are trout, but yet they're different wherever they happen to be living. And their behaviors are different. The places they live are different. And New Zealand is just a real wide open country with lots of big water and lots of big trout.
And have you seen any changes there over the years, in the many, many years that you've been fishing down there? Is it still, and I often ask people on the podcast, where's your dream destination? Of course, it's quite often going to be New Zealand. But as somebody who's there on the river all the time, are you seeing changes there since when you first fished, or is it pretty constant?
Yeah, I first fished in New Zealand in 1987, which it truly was America back in the 50s. And a good day for me was 6, 7, maybe 8 trout, usually north of 5 pounds apiece. And then the change has come through a lot of the agriculture. We've got a lot of dairy farms, a lot of big arable farms that are using, first of all, extracting water from the rivers, which has lowered the river levels. Then New Zealand is well known for the use of fertilizer, and that has been runoff. I mean, it's just compounded. And now to me, a good day is 1 fish. That's how bad it's gotten.
And is there the footfall, is that pretty constant, or has that grown with the likes of social media, with publications, those sorts of things? Have you noticed the footfall from visiting anglers changing?
Yeah, I think we have seen a big surge. I mean, we get a ton of American people coming down, and mostly because they can afford it. I mean, the lodges in New Zealand are not like bunk beds. They're, fairly extensively expensive. But, I mean, it's still a good place to fish. I saw a video of a guy debating Patagonia versus New Zealand. And he ran through the checkpoints, and he said at the end of the day, if you want to catch big fish, he'd send them to New Zealand. I don't know how true that is, but you fished Patagonia. And I wish I could say that it was always true that you catch big fish, but I've had a couple really bad seasons where my catchphrase for the day out was, it was a nice day out.
A good long walk, right?
Yeah, good long walk. Yeah, sometimes a good hour back to the vehicle or an hour and a half. You walk a lot. Yeah.
And to give you, Duncan mentioned lodges and things like that. To give you a clue, and he's a little bit older than me, only a little bit, and he's super sprightly. But he was telling me that he camps when he's down here, and we bumped into him again. That he said he was in town. And it was very funny. I was booked up to guide Johannes and Rebecca, and Duncan happened to be in town, and the three of us actually we wrote about it in Eat Sleep Fish as well. I remember the day now, and we wrote about it, and it's lovely seeing Duncan's got his Eat Sleep Fish cap on, which pre-me as well. That was the online magazine that I put out for 5 years, I think it was, monthly again. And Duncan wrote for that a number of times and wrote about, the differences between the fishing here and the fishing in the States and the fishing in New Zealand as well. But that was wonderful fun as well. And I remember us netting Johannes' first ever grayling, which was really, really cool. But he was staying at a campsite and he was telling me this morning, we met at the Fox and Hounds for some breakfast, or I had a bacon sandwich and a cup of coffee and a catch-up. And he was telling me that it was pouring down with rain where he was staying, so he just slept in the car. And that is sort of, I guess, knowing you as I do, I know that's how you like to roll with these sorts of things, and you like to wander. But it hasn't changed for you, has it?
No. I mean, when I was living here and living in Australia, I had a bet with my ex-partner that I had to go back for 3 months every year to fish in New Zealand. And when I go back, I'd roll into town, go to the first Subaru dealer I could find, get myself a station wagon, and that was home for 3 months, literally. Yeah.
And how was that whole experience? Has it, as you've got older, have you suddenly have there been signs where you might crack a little bit and say, oh, I'm going to get a B&B, or have you stayed hardcore?
I've weakened a bit, that's for sure. I mean, the last 2 days I've been over at the Nobody Inn pub, which was a nice relief after being cramped up in my SUV with rain pounding down, freezing weather. It's just not what I was expecting when I came. Yeah, I packed all wrong.
And you're wet wading now, which you're used to. And I know you were saying to me about, taking waders back to New Zealand, et cetera, the issues with that. And you thought you're wet wading. And of course, if you've been to New Zealand, you'll have experienced that. But have you found that's fitted in pretty well here too?
Yeah, it was just really a practical matter. Is I knew logistically and weight-wise, I couldn't bring my waders and wading boots. Plus, as you mentioned, getting them back into New Zealand is the problem. Getting them in here is not a big problem. The same thing with my flies and my vest. New Zealand is very, very strict, and I just wouldn't want to see 4 or 5 fly boxes go into the dumper. So I've just skinnied it down to a pair of waterproof socks, a pair of tights, a pair of shorts, and my Teva sandals as my wading. And they seem to be working fine.
And we've got, I said, don't worry about flies and things like that. He's got a rod, of course. But Warren, your Catskill style mayfly is working so far this morning. We've got one ginked up and ready. And we're at the bottom of the river. And with the mayflies coming off, that we thought this slower water would be the place to actually find a fish feeding. So we're sort of patiently waiting. I'm hoping Duncan's not feeling too cold standing next to me. The dog is actually standing almost up to his chin waiting as well. And he's had some excitement. As I said, I got lucky early on from a spot I really, really wanted to catch a fish. So I'm thrilled about that. I really, really want Duncan to catch one too. So we're just being patient. The hatch, the fish, I was here Sunday, so I'm recording this on the Friday now, so the Sunday previously with Warren, and they were just sort of kind of getting there. The fish were almost getting there, but not quite. But it feels already that the hatch is a little bit bigger, and I think the fish might be eating them. We're standing opposite a spot where I said to Duncan, there's a chance of a fish in there. We're just watching a mayfly skitter around and go unmolested just at the moment. While we were talking, though, on the right, just up here, I saw a fish rise. So I'm encouraged by that. It was a sip more than anything else. And first off, as well, you think, well, I'm going to tie on Warren's fly and that's going to catch me a fish. And it didn't. I had to change things up. I put a mayfly emerger on. I changed size. I went bigger. I went smaller. I even hung an unweighted sort of wet fly, one that Yestin had tied me underneath just to see if they were picking the flies off as they were emerging. But I think patience is going to be the key. I think the river here, and you've probably heard me describe it before, comes into the fishes. It faces downstream and then moves round behind the river, as it were, in the afternoon. And I think that's where we're probably going to see the best of it. But we've seen a small fish rise further up, and it is at this early stage, I think it probably pays dividends a little bit just to be patient, just to wait a little bit and see how we go. But you mentioned Montana, you've mentioned New Zealand, and you've fished the east coast of America a bit as well, and you've hung around with some really interesting people as well, haven't you?
Yeah. No, I had some good friends in the States, Barry and Kathy Beck, who I did a bunch of trips with to Bighorn River, and they guided on the Pennsylvania streams, which were surprisingly quite prolific with fish. I've fished a lot of places, Ireland, Scotland, of course here, and Spain. Spain was a big fishing trip for me. I lived there for 3 years, and it was just an interesting place to fish because just like here, it's all different, even though the trout is all different. One of the complications is Spain doesn't have a national fishing license. So you've got 17 communities, and you've got to get 17 different licenses to fish the whole country, which I think when I left Spain, I had 7. But it's sort of similar in the sense that you have to the strike is quick, the fish are quick, but and they've recovered because they had a real serious problem during the Franco years where they just built factory after factory on the beautiful river valleys, and they dumped all their chemicals into it. Some friends of mine said some of the rivers we fished used to be black. And since they joined the EU, they had to clean up their act, and they got money to do it, so it's a lot better now.
I've been lucky enough to fish in Spain on the way to Andorra, and I don't know if that's where you were, but it's extraordinary fishing. I was there the year before last, and it's great fun. Funnily enough, we discovered barbel. I don't know if you played with those a little bit.
Yes, I have played with barbel. Yeah, they're sort of a strange fish. It's almost like catching carp, and they're quite slimy, very slimy. I enjoyed catching just about any fish on a fly. We talked earlier about our experiences each catching carp, which I enjoyed, although it's quite strange. They're a strange fish. They're not. They don't have normal behavior. But yeah, no.
And they're not carp. Am I right? They're not popular in New Zealand at all, are they?
No. They're a dreaded invasive species that just like, well, actually trouts are invasive species too. And there's a lot of arguments about they should get rid of trout, but that's way too late now.
And I guess the tourist industry wouldn't want the trout getting rid.
No, they wouldn't.
So we're waiting here at the moment. We're going to get more of Duncan's story as we go down the line, but I've seen there's a couple of fish risen, haven't they, just upstream of us. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for that big one to come up and eat something. And if not, we might spec some casters as we're looking. I've just seen, I don't know if that was a duck. It's too deep. I've seen a rise, and it must be 300 yards. And I saw the splashy rise clearly. It must have been a colossal fish for me to be able to see that. That was a really big one. My friend Duncan, he is able to get into those spots. Duncan Rayner, who knows this Duncan as well, actually. So I've got to tell him that we've met up today. But he tried to get in there once, and he was able to do that. But I think for us, that's going to be a little bit tricky. But that was a huge, huge fish. I thought it was a duck at first because there were some ducks further up, but there is nothing around there. Nothing's moved away. So that's an encouraging sign. So, yeah, we're going to wait a little bit here. The dog, as I said, is just saying, look, I'm getting a bit cold now, lads. So I'm going to probably get out. For him, fishing is work. We're here to catch. There's another one just risen up in there by the tree there. That looked a better fish, would be my gut with that. So, yeah, I think he's going to wander in a minute and shake himself off. But we'll wait and see. As I said, patience really does pay off in situations like this, particularly early in the day when there's stuff happening, but it's not happening regularly. So, yeah, I think we're going to stake one out. As I said, I think that one that moved up there was a better fish. He took something in the film as well. So, yeah, we'll be watching very, very closely. And as I said, there's a few mayflies coming down the river. And they give us the clue that we need. But, yeah, we're going to see if we can find one of those nice fish for Duncan too. If you're a regular listener, you know where we are now. I mention Island Pool from time to time, and we're standing in that at the moment. We came and had a look here and we saw a good fish eat a mayfly. Got ourselves into position. Duncan covered it perfectly from giving it an upstream presentation, but just didn't eat it. And it feels as though there's still a little circumspect here at the moment. There's a rise actually just downstream. So we've tried to give it, there's an oak tree that comes over where we're trying to cast. And earlier, I was saying to Duncan 2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw a sizable fish rise against the base of that oak tree. Now the sun is right in his face there, so he's probably not going to go just yet. We've covered the fish perfectly from downstream, and then we've been trying to give him a downstream presentation. There's been some naturals coming down. He's not eating those as well. So when I'm sort of stalking fish like this, I much prefer to wait until they're actually on again. And it may be that we walk upstream for a little bit, but we've been catching up, and we've been sharing fishing stories, and Duncan was telling me a lovely story that's too nice not to share about a stream that you fished. It may be that we cut off if we see this fish go again, but No Name River. Tell us about that.
I was fishing over by Lake Brunner, and the guide I was working with, that we got off to a really bad start the first day. So the second day, we were sort of both nervous about who's going to, how we're going to get along. And he took me to this river, and I asked him, well, what's the name of this river? He said, it's the No Name River. It's famous No Name River in New Zealand. And he put me on to 10 fish that day. I caught 7. Landed 7, and the last fish of the day, it was a tough cast because I had a forest behind me, very short, had a very high back cast, had to get it out pretty far into the middle of the stream, and I did, and I hooked this 8-pound brown trout, and the guide said, I'll give you a piece of advice. I said, what's that? He goes, I'd be running if I was you. And so I ran down the bank. I got to a point where I couldn't run anymore. He goes, another piece of advice, I'd jump. So I did, and landed the fish. It was an 8-pound, beautiful brown trout.
It's kind of nice when it all works out, and that's interesting seeing both sides of it. And I know when I was used to be guiding that you're always a bit nervous when you meet somebody for the first time, and you're trying to, I always describe it as sort of trying to press the buttons to find out what makes you click. Then that day becomes a little bit easier, and the easiest way to start is saying, what do you want out of that day? And we're seeing a couple of fish rise now just downstream. I saw another sizable one go under an oak tree probably 30 yards downstream of us, so we may go and have a look at that in a minute. But yeah, getting that sense of, are you going to get along, and finding out. And sometimes it takes a little bit more time to do that, but it's kind of nice when you see the perspective of the guide that he was obviously nervous that, and Duncan had been telling me that the first day had been difficult. There'd been kayakers coming down the river that knackered the river from a fishing perspective, so it made it difficult from there. And that's frustrating as a guide, because you know that you want your guests for the day to catch a fish, and you put them in a wonderful spot and a wonderful position, and then instances out of your control happen and you're blown up. So as a result of that, so it's kind of nice seeing both sides of that story at the moment. But yeah, we're watching and waiting. We've seen a couple of fish go. Again, there's no rush here, and it looks, I always describe this, and Warren was here, and Luke Bannister was here with me as well, and Luke said to me, and he's a hugely talented, as is Warren, fly caster. I think he may have just gone. Do you hear that? And he said, geez, you think it's just a straight cast across the pool, but it's anything but that. There's a lot of drag comes into it. You've got to get it right. You know, there's a lot of tree branches. You just got to be on your game here. So we're just waiting at the moment. As I said, there's a few fish. They're not sort of eating hard. And my guess is, as the afternoon goes on and the hatch intensifies and the sun comes around behind us, there's going to be more of a game. But Duncan's just pointed to me again, another fish that's risen. So it may be that we slowly step out and have a go. But I think we should have one last cast into there just to see.
Look down there. They're coming up left, right, and center.
Right, and here we go then. We're going to have a walk downstream, see what we can find. It's funny, the day's not playing out initially how we hoped. It's warm, very, very warm. There are some mayfly coming off, but I think there was more around this morning actually than this afternoon. It's coming up 2:30, something like that. We're going to be fishing till about 4ish, and we're going to go back to Island Pool, see if we can find some rising fish. We went down to 4 acres. I had one just rose once, right in a hard to reach spot, but a nice pretty fish, 12 inches or so, perhaps a tiny bit bigger. It was just really beautifully marked, so I took a couple of photos of that. But the other thing, Monty's been amazing company, and I wrote something in the magazine recently about my relationship with him and how he's my fishing friend. And I've had a lot of letters about it as well, which is lovely. So thank you for everyone who took the time to write to me about the article. It's very, very kind of you, and it's greatly appreciated. And I hoped it would resonate with other people who have our four-legged friends who come along to the river with them. But Duncan's very, very similar as well, that the company of the dog is really key to you, isn't it?
It's absolutely critical. It's the unconditional love and the faithfulness, and they make you laugh. You know, they got a real character to them. And I think it's been really weird that science has taken so long for them to really believe that animals are really screwing smart.
And for you, Billy, as well, he comes fishing with you from time to time?
He does. Billy does come fishing. He's not a big swimmer, but he knows he needs to cross the river, and he plunges in and ends up about 30, 40 yards downstream. But he's a happy dog.
And they're the sorts of rivers, really, aren't they? That I guess, I know if Mont got in, I'd be slightly worried, but the dogs always figure it out, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They find the ground. They find the way to. They know where they need to go, and they just go for it.
And also, one of the things I was thinking about was, you know, we've been talking. It's been funny. I've been saying about, you know, nice fish that live on the river here. But as somebody who lives in New Zealand, you know, and some of the stories you've told already have been about fish 6 to 8 pounds and probably beyond that. But what happens for you? Because we think of New Zealand as anglers, as the place that we all dream to go to, that we all dream to fish. But what about when there's no fishing season? What do you busy yourself with?
Tying flies, reading about fishing, watching fishing videos. There's always something to learn, some place to see that you haven't been to. That, you know, a video does a lot to get that sort of itch under your skin, and that's what I do. I spend a lot of my time just doing fly fishing stuff.
And what about the community there? Do you have sort of a big fishing community?
Yeah, there's a number of clubs all over New Zealand. I belong to the Canterbury Anglers Club, and they have a monthly meeting, and they publish a newsletter. They organize trips. They've got 3 huts around Canterbury for you to use. It's a great group, really good.
And by huts, do you mean, is that somewhere that you can go sleep in too?
Yes. They're actually just old villas besides the river, besides the lake, and they're cheap as chips. It's about as cheap as you can do to go fishing.
And for you, when you're out fishing, you know, we were talking about as we get a little bit older as well, that you get your feel, don't you? And we've sat down, we talked for ages, waiting perhaps for that nice mythical fish to rise for us. But you manage time differently now, isn't it? As we get a little bit older, it's not about running up the river as quickly as we can trying to find a fish. It becomes a bit more, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially in New Zealand. I think New Zealand rivers are a challenge, both to fish and to walk. And you have to always remember that the farther you go up the river, the farther you've got to go back river to get to your vehicle. And it's great if there's a track beside the river, but usually it means just wading right back down the river, where if it's difficult wading, which I don't particularly like big rocks, it makes the journey very tiring. Yeah.
So managing that is important. I guess it must be one of those difficult things as well, isn't it? That you've made the yomp in and then somebody's fishing in the pool in front of you.
Yeah, it happens. I've had people very rudely just pull their SUV up in front of me and climb in the pool ahead of me. I mean, in New Zealand, there's a general etiquette. They pass out, Fishing Game passes out cards that you can put in your dashboard that say fishing upstream, fishing downstream, so people have an idea of what you're doing, which is a real help, because you get to a spot to fish and there's an SUV or a Jeep or something and you don't know, do they go up or do they go down? So it's just really nice to tell people what you're doing.
And tell me, how did you cope when you saw somebody jumping in front of you like that?
There were a few words exchanged. I couldn't believe it. Neither could my fishing friend Craig. We were just standing there in awe, looking like dumb idiots, because we said, well, how could you even think of doing that? But they did, yeah.
That's extraordinary behaviour. Well, hopefully we won't have any of that today. But we've got a pool that I'm sort of looking at the moment that I think may be worth a look, and then we'll go for the money shot again. As I said, I don't know if it's the change in the temperature. I can't tell you exactly what it is. Like I say, the hatch was happening more this morning than this afternoon. I was saying to Duncan that, this afternoon it's going to be, game on. We should have it there 2-3 o'clock, but it's not happened as yet. But where we're going back to, I think, will be a little bit more sheltered. But we'll have a go there, have a look round, see what we can find, and go from there. That was kind of a weird afternoon. That the hatch never really came to anything. Saw the odd mayfly. But the rises, I stuffed one. That came out of nowhere to eat the may. So missed that one. But it's been a weird day, hasn't it?
Yeah, very weird day. It was more activity this morning than there is now. And it's warmer now, obviously. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's strange. If the wind's spun round a little bit and it's coming from the north now. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. We can come up with wonderful reasons why the fish aren't biting, but sometimes that's just how it is. And it may be that we come back a little bit later, and it may be that we're making this transition into more evening fishing now as well. So I'm going to be watching that relatively closely. Maybe I'll make a couple of visits down, see if they're eating mayfly spinners. But I really thought, and it felt initially this morning, that it was going to be a big mayfly hatch, and it just hasn't played out like that, which is sometimes how it goes. Water's still cold. I think I've got a leak in the neoprene sock of my wader, so I can tell you it's cold from that point of view. But it has been fun. It's been lovely to catch up with Duncan. I so wanted him to get one of these really nice tour trout, and they've been a little bit elusive full stop today, so they'll keep for another time, and I'm hoping that he'll be able to come over again and fish. And we're trying to, we hadn't seen each other for 10 years or so, and it's been really nice to do that. But one of the questions I always like to ask Duncan as well is that, you were telling me that some of the journeys into the rivers can take quite some time. Is there music that you like to listen to? Is there a song that will set the tone for that day's fishing as you get in the car for the first time, or the Land Rover, I should say?
Yeah, I can't hear anything in the Land Rover, but I like a bit of Crowded House. Yeah, suits New Zealand, just brings up that New Zealand vibe. That's probably one of my favorites, but as I said, you can't even have a conversation in the Land Rover. It's rated 90 decibels. That's how loud it is.
I'm surprised you can hear me. When I was calling Duncan that I'd seen a fish rising. It was some way down, but he didn't hear me. And we need to hear a little bit about your Land Rover because it used to live over here, so I've seen it and I know it. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's a 1975 Series 3. It's got a 200 TDI, strong, gutsy engine with an overdrive, so 100 K is not a big deal for the Land Rover. I took it to New Zealand because there are none in New Zealand anymore, and it's quite valuable down there. It's insured for $40,000. Yeah. And it's been rebuilt because when I took it over, it failed its NZTA, the New Zealand Transporters, their inspection, and I had to get a new chassis, new fuel tank, new footwell for the passenger side, new firewall. I mean, it was a full container. Yeah.
It does sound like it's almost a new car in some respect.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Well, my friend, I think we're going to start. I know you've got to go on for the next part of your tour, and we may cross over for a day, so I'm hoping that we may be able to do that. There's a small fish just risen downstream of us that who knows if we go for it or not, we'll see. But it's been a good day. It's been wonderful to see you. It's been wonderful to catch up, and I hope it's a little bit shorter than 10 years next time.
Yeah, me too. We'll definitely make it shorter than 10 years. I might not be around in 10 years.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Well, everyone, this has been another episode, an impromptu one. I just thought it was nice that Duncan, whenever I put a podcast out, always shares it on his Facebook as well. So I said, hey, do you want to... I said thank you for sharing it. And then I also said, hey, do you want to come on it? So You capture a little bit of a day of friends catching up for the first time in a little while. I'd love to say it's one of those fish field days, but it hasn't been. I'd rather be honest about it and not magic a fish out of somewhere. It's just not happened in that way today, which has been a shame. And, I always proudly show this water to people, and sometimes it comes up with the goods, but not always. It's the sort of place that you're going to not ever catch a load of fish, but you might catch that one special fish. And, the one I weighed earlier is a special fish. It was really, really nice. So I'm thrilled about that. I'd have just liked my buddy to catch one, but that'll keep for another time. But I'd like to say a huge thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for I've just seen a big one rise right against there. Thank you for listening. There'll never be any charge for these. It's just fun to chat to people. If you do like it, please subscribe. I think that helps. Somebody told me somewhere it helps. So I'd greatly appreciate that. And thank you again for all the people who send me loads and loads of messages about telling me they're enjoying the podcast. So huge thank you. And as ever, there'll be plenty more coming very, very soon.
Thanks for listening to the Fly Culture podcast, brought to you in association with the Voice of Game Angling, Trout and Salmon, where Pete is the editor.